the go-to site for your infinite source of precise, reliable, and factual material exposing the Watchtower organization.
Hello, everyone. My name's Rick Farron. I'm glad you could join us tonight here on the Six Screens. We are going to have some great programming tonight. We'll be going pretty much up in, well, the wee hours of the morning. So if you can stay in with us, that would be wonderful if you could. But anyways, what we do here is we expose the Watchtower. And we have people call in from pretty much all over the world in real time and telling us about their thoughts, they're tracking the Watchtower, as we say. So why don't you stay with us tonight? I know you'll enjoy the program. We have our first show of the night. We call it Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower. And we have a lady out there from California. Her name is Anne Marie. She's a former Jehovah's Witness, and she's here with us tonight. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick. Happy Sixth Green Saturday.
Well, there you go. Well, I'll tell you what, things are moving real fast here. You get the days very confused. But Anne Marie, I'll tell you, the longer we go at this, the more we see the Watchtower is collapsing. There's no doubt about it. I am not looking through rose-colored glasses, but we are seeing the collapse of a religious organization. And it sure feels good to see one of the nastiest, most destructive organizations on the planet having a difficult time keeping their head above water. They're going down, Anne Marie.
Absolutely, and it's the Watchtower rights. Would just take off those Watchtower glasses and they'd be able to see it too.
Yeah, so anyways, you'll be discussing things tonight. You always have a good number of people calling in. We got a lot of people already coming in. So anything in particular you're going to be mentioning to the audience tonight?
Yeah, Watchtower scams and rip-offs of their own people.
Well, I'll tell you what, Anne Marie, I don't know if you heard my preview here, but on the news tonight, we'll be talking about, what some of the witnesses are doing is they're charging other witnesses to come to a little get-together. So, now I've seen this when I lived up here years ago. It happened once. But what it seems to be happening pretty much around the country, maybe around the world, that a lot of the witnesses are trying to make money off of other Jehovah's Witnesses. They're scamming them. But I mean, not in a truest sense of a scam, because they do have the get-together. But in fact, we'll be reporting tonight some of these get-togethers. Now imagine this. Some of these get-togethers, the Jehovah's Witnesses are charging $60 to come to. And if you pay up front rather than pay at the door, they'll give you a little discount. I mean, does that sound ridiculous or what?
Oh, it sounds like it's being awful.
Well,
I wonder how many of you have.
Well, I remember it had to be a good 30 years ago. I've heard of this, and it had actually happened to me. I had a brother and sister call me up. Hey, Rick, can you and your wife come over? We're gonna have a lobster dinner. Can you come over this Saturday? Oh, geez, that would be great, I said. But they said, but the only thing is, it's I think it was $20 a person. So I'm going, wow, I have to pay to go. Yeah, you have to pay. So I've heard of this, but now it seems to be really proliferating. More and more witnesses are doing this, Anne-Marie, to make a few bucks.
It's so sad. Well, I guess they're taking their tips and their lead from what the Watchtower has been doing for years.
Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating to hear on the news tonight how many people have witnessed that. So anyways, I'll kind of cut you loose. I'm here if you need me. And you got your own audience coming in now. So you take it away, Anne-Marie. I'm here if you need me.
Well, thank you so very much, my dear brother. And thank you again for your faithfully providing the platform of the Six Screens without ever missing a Saturday for over 20 years now. Thank you for all your hard work. Welcome everyone in to today's show, Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower, as we all were. Today is April 5th, 2025, almost 50 years past the time that Watchtower had claimed that Armageddon would come no later than the autumn of 1975. So we're kind of the screwed 1975 generation. We weren't supposed to go to school or go to college. In fact, one person commented probably the biggest reason that Watchtower didn't want us to go to college is because sending your kids to college costs money. So let's talk against going to college, and that money that they maybe have set aside to send their kids to college way back when, got to go to Watchtower. Watchtower had every means and way and manipulative tactic to get the money out of the pockets of the Watchtower rights. We are talking today about Watchtower scams and rip-offs of Jehovah's Witnesses. They've done a lot of scams and a lot of rip-offs. And it's really, really sad to think of. You know, this is supposed to be God's Christian organization, the only true religion of true Christians. And it's a sad, sad thing. If anybody wants to call in, please feel free to hit *6 with a comment or something to say anytime. I'm going to be talking a lot. I also want to take the... Hello.
It's Grace from Sweden.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that I talked to an elder's wife, and her husband had a letter that in May, the governing body is coming out with an announcement. And I would very much like to know what is this announcement. I don't get the exact date, but it will be in May that the governing body will have an announcement. And I was thinking, is it money they want? Or is it some new change? They have made a lot of changes lately because they are desperate to get members. Is it something like that? So my mind has been working overtime. And she also said it will be open for the public. So it's not like a secret thing. So I'm planning to go when I get the date. Oh, that's all from me, really. But I enjoy your show. Thank you.
Well, we enjoy your listening and calling in, Grace. Thank you for that bit of information. I hadn't heard about any announcement. Well, thank you so much, Grace, for your comment. I wanted to take the time to welcome everyone, including the thin pews especially. Those are those who are physically in the Watchtower, but who are now mentally questioning. They see things, they hear things, they read things that just doesn't sit right with their heart, and they're no longer able to just swallow it down and use the excuse, oh, well, Jehovah will take care of it, or, oh, the governing body's just imperfect men, or worrying that Satan's trying to take over their mind. It's a very scary situation for them to be. They're not like the chemos who are physically in, mentally out, who have already been brave enough to do all the research, enough to have their minds completely open, but they stay in the organization, mostly for keep their family, their wife, their husband, their children, grandparents, friends, so on. So I want to welcome them. We're so happy you can tune in. And anybody who wants to share a thought, you don't need to give your real name. You can say whoever you want to say you are. Call yourself Bill, call yourself Sally. It's all good. This is your show. Feel free to speak your mind. *6 to unmute, and please remember to *6 to remute yourself so we don't get a lot of background noise in the recording, because this will be on YouTube and in the archives for future listeners. Today, again, I wanted to talk about Watchtower scams, how Watchtower has scammed and ripped off their own people in so many ways. And I only have a few examples, but those few were enough to just make me shudder. At any time when I'm going through my notes, please know that you are perfectly welcome to hit *6, share your thought, your comment, your experience, what you know, at any time, okay? Because this is your show. Again, I'll just briefly repeat myself that one commenter, I think on Reddit or on YouTube, mentioned that she thought the reason why Watchtower was so against anybody sending their kids to college. This is not long after the Watchtower proclaimed their 1975 Armageddon prophecy, which was actually in 1966 at their district convention, Godsons of Liberty, when they made that prophecy and announced it, and supposedly proved it by holding up their new publication, Freedom. I'm trying to remember, Freedom and the Sons of God, something like that. But they said that in the first chapter, there was a full 5-page Bible chronological chart proving that they were right, that this time they had the Armageddon date right. I was surprised when the talk announcing the Armageddon prophecy of 1975 that they were referring to earlier Armageddon dates. And I was like, what? So I was just like 11 years old. And I was like, what? There were other dates? We had never heard of a date. And sure enough, after the session, everybody was rushing to the kiosk to get their copy of the new book, Freedom and the Sons of God. That's not the whole title. I totally forgot. But sure enough, in the first chapter, they were all looking through that chart, and at the very bottom, it said 1975, the end of mankind's recorded existence. And I think it did say autumn. And the way the whole talk presenting the whole prophecy was worded, this was a definite thing. And the very next year, in 1967, Brother Charles Shinuko, I think he was the district overseer at the time he gave the talk. I think the name of the talk was Running with Everlasting Life in View. And he was going on and on about the surety of Armageddon coming in 1975. And at one point he says, so what is all this about 1975? And he paused and then he says, well, we don't have to ask what 1975 means if we read the Watchtower. And the whole audience was chuckling like, yeah, we're privy to this very special knowledge that nobody else knows. So it was drummed in our head at every convention, every meeting, every Watchtower, every awake, every publication, even in the public talks, lest we forget. Don't ever think you can mess up and have time to get to fellowship and come back, because Watchtower could come, Armageddon could come at any time. The latest would be in the autumn of 1975. So among other things, like pushing everyone to go out and service more, to pioneer, auxiliary pioneer, they called it vacation pioneer at some point. It was all about hurry up and do as much as you can for Jehovah, and, don't think about materialism. And people were cashing in their life insurance, giving up their pensions, selling their homes, sending all this money to Watchtower. In fact, I think it was in the May Kingdom Ministry of 1974 that there was a little article about how all of these brothers were spending in all their money and going into the pioneer work. I remember the brother who read it at the circuit assembly said, what a fine way to spend the remaining few months, Jehovah's service. And what we didn't know is during the time all that money was coming in to the Watchtower coffers, the Watchtower was going around buying up prime New York real estate with cash. And they were buying other properties. They were just gobbling it up, getting richer and richer, while all of us were getting poorer because we thought, we only need this much money just to last till 75. And a lot of people gave up their careers and whatever. But among other things, Watchtower really pushed not to send your kids to college, not to let them go to college. In fact, a lot of elders were encouraging young ones, 17 or so, to just quit high school. Why are you going to stay with high school? That's just investing in Satan's world. You should just quit and go into the pioneer work or go work at Bethel. So they took away our education, but the worst of it was they were really downing the idea of even thinking of sending your children to college. And there were kids that, a lot of kids, it's sad to know, a lot of the Jehovah's Witness children were so good at their schoolwork and had such high grades that a lot of these kids had scholarships to completely cover their college education, and they still weren't allowed to go to college, or else they wouldn't be putting Jehovah's first. In fact, they were seen as not being faithful to Jehovah. They were seen as investing in Satan's world. And what really bothered me as a young kid was watching how parents of kids who wanted to go to college, even if the parents tried to talk their kids out of it, if their kids wanted to go to college, the parents were seen as not having done their proper spiritual parenting duty. In other words, they had failed Jehovah because their kids were going to college. And these parents were openly shunned. They weren't disfellowshipped. They weren't publicly reproved or even privately reproved. But there was a practice called marking in those days, where an individual Jehovah's Witness could choose to personally shun or mark a witness that had a kid that was going to college. And I saw it happen. I saw it happen to people that had been very close, and now all of a sudden these poor parents are being shunned. And this was like in 67, 68, 69. In fact, in the 1969 May 22nd Awake, Watchtower produced an article all about the young people in the organization, that they had to face the fact that they would never grow old in this system. They would never have time to complete an education or a career and so on. Anyone want to look up that article, just go to jwfacts.com and put in the search bar May 22nd, 1969 Awake, and just scroll down and you will find it. It's there. That's just one scam. But one person commented regarding Watchtower not wanting the kids to go to college. She said, it costs money to send your kids to college. I mean, there's going to be transportation, book fees, whatever. And, Watchtower always seems to be looking for ways to get money out of their congregants, out of their rank and file. They didn't even want you to have a dog. They even had a talk from the podium at the circuit convention about not having pets, especially dogs. Why? Because they cost money and they take you away from Jehovah's service. They're thinking vet bills, pet insurance, illness. And I didn't realize till later that's another bit of money that Watchtower could have been getting. My husband and I just recently had a dog and he died. And we spent thousands of dollars, trying to pay for his vet care because he was very ill. And I'm thinking how Watchtower must have been thinking, oh, that money could have gone to us. See all that money you spent on having a dog? It's just awful. One scam I'm thinking of is the food tickets in the 1980s. Anybody have a comment, something they want to share? I want you to feel free to jump in anytime. It's *6 if you feel like sharing. This is your show.
Anne-Marie?
Yes.
Anne-Marie, this is Donald. Says, hi, how are you?
Donald?
Yes.
Hi, Donald. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was thinking, you're talking about them buying all this property back in the day of 75 and all that stuff. I was thinking, wait a minute. If they're buying all this property, it's all going to be firebombed when Jehovah starts Armageddon. So what's the use of buying it all? What's the purpose of it? I mean, it's all going to be torn up anyway. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy. I think it's nuts. I mean, totally nuts. And the education thing, they're still telling people not to go to college and stuff.
Yeah.
They're still telling them that.
I hear you.
Anything they can do to keep dumb and poor, that's what they'll do.
Dumb and poor. That's a good one.
Yeah, dumb and poor. Well, not to say the high school students are stupid. They're not. But I'm just saying that, when they talk about careers and stuff, I would love to go into one of their governing body meetings and say, okay, you guys, since you guys are against education, throw your cars away, send them to the junkyard, get out of this building you're in because it was designed by engineers who went to college. Don't go to doctors because they went to college. Don't use medicine because it was created by people who have college degrees. Let's see. Don't drink water out of the faucet because that requires sex education as well. And you might as well just walk the Kingdom Halls and walk to the Bethels and stuff, and get back to the old living and get rid of your go ahead, get rid of your tablets too. College people made those tablets,
Right.
Yeah, they're bad mouthing education. They're benefiting from education.
Yeah, what about that lawyer? It was a very respected, loyal brother, and they sent him to law school, paid for everything with the stipulation. I'm sure they made him sign something, a legal paper agreeing that he would only serve the Watchtower. And, so they down education, but look how many people that they have been putting out that they're looking for to serve them that have education. But don't you dare go get it.
That new governing body that they have, I don't know what his name is, but that one in the real estate, the big, huge real estate guy.
I remember his name, yeah.
Yeah, look at what he has access to. I mean, he's no dummy. I mean, he's a real estate mogul. He's powerful in real estate. And they got him in their midst now, so they can use him for getting more properties and getting more weapons under their belt, I guess.
Absolutely. And they tend to coddle any famous person that is part of the Watchtower, like George Benson, beautiful musician, beautiful man. They got a lot of money from Michael Jackson, a lot of money, because he was really faithful for so long. And you have like Teresa Graves, who had a great show in the 70s. She was a beautiful black girl playing a detective, and it was a very popular show, and she was a detective in the show. And her, what she was known for is she'd tackle somebody, and with a big smile, she'd go, "You under arrest, sugar." Just real sweet. But the Watchtower, yeah, you can look up Teresa Graves, on Google. She was just amazing. This was like in 1973, 74. She had this great show called Get Christy Love. And the Watchtowerites got a hold of her and convinced her that she was serving Satan's world. And she gave up everything, her career, her everything. And, she wanted to be faithful to the Watchtower. And the last I heard, she was living in a dilapidated trailer. And she got caught in a fire caused by a space heater and died. I mean, what a horrible thing, because she was such a fun, sweet lady. And there are other famous people who have been involved with Watchtower who had money, and it went into the coffers of the Watchtower. And they don't brag about that. They don't put it out there, just like most of the rank and file have no idea what Watchtower was doing with all that money that came pouring in, before 1975. They didn't know that money they were sending in was going to buy up prime real estate. They still, but last time.
Pretty sad because they don't help nobody either, really.
Exactly. No, they do not.
I mean, if you call Watchtower and say, "I'm starving, I haven't had a job and I need food," you know what they're going to do, don't you? They're going to send you to churches to get food. Yet, of course, if they say they don't want you going into the church.
Exactly. They're always preaching about what you have to do, what you need to do, give, but never will they help you. I remember this dear brother, faithful to the Watchtower for his whole life, and he and his wife and family on very hard times. He had lost his job, and his PG&E, his gas and electric, was going to get shut off. And this was the only time he asked for help. He went to the elders, and he said, please, can you help me pay this one bill? They're going to shut off my gas and lights. He had children and a wife. And they almost looked at him like, are you crazy? And read them the scripture. I think it's Galatians 6:5, for each one will carry his own load. I mean, they wouldn't help you by giving you a loaf of bread if you were dying.
Oh my goodness. Wait until God gets a hold of them on that one. Because, didn't Jesus say that if he didn't feed if he didn't feed or visit me in hospital, or whatever, I can't remember the exact scripture, but it has something to do, meeting people's needs and stuff, basically. And they're not doing that. And they're going to stand for God and say, oh, let me in heaven, please let me in, please let me in. God's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you.
Thank you, Donald.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Yes, thank you, Donald. Who's this here?
Hello, Anne-Marie. Kurt. Hello.
Hi, Kurt. How are you?
Hey, doing good. And you sound good. I enjoy your program all the time. I listen to it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I heard Grace on a few minutes ago. I want to say hello to her. And say hello to you and comment a little bit about what you've been talking about. I'm glad you're a dog lover, by the way.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think the name of that book you brought up is, I haven't seen it in years, Life Everlasting.
Thank you.
The Freedom of the Sons of God. I think, don't quote me on I may be off a little bit.
It's Life Everlasting in the God.
Yeah. And I remember what you were talking about, the chart and discussion of the millennium that would be, or the 6,000 years would end October something of 75. And talking about scams, I think Fred Franz was responsible for that more than anybody. You probably know more about it than I do, you and Rick, maybe some other people. But that would, I guess, be considered a scam. For example, the setting of the date of creation at 4026 BCE. Friends and others at the Watchtower, a few others, I guess, in the leadership, believe that Jehovah himself had helped them come up with that creation date. And of course, you remember that, and you remember that's how they factored it, came to the 1975 date. And it turned out to be a scam because it didn't come true.
If I can interject, you are correct. As far as I know, everything I've researched has pointed exactly to the same thing. It was Fred Franz, Crazy Freddy, who actually came up and implemented the entire Watchtower Armageddon prophecy. It was a scam. He knew it was. And then he's the one that chastised everybody for being upset that it didn't come. He was awful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Now, if you remember the years, I'm trying to think of the history of this, but a Catholic priest, his name's on just the tip of my tongue, so to speak, said the date of creation of 4004. You remember that? Yeah, 4004.
I don't know 4004, but I do know. Are you talking about the speech of the Dominican order?
Maybe so. You might be right. He might have been Dominican.
He might have.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I know who you're. Listen, yeah. I want to know from you if I'm on the same page with you, Kurt. Maybe I'm not, but are you referring to the Catholic monk Ramundus Martini, who in the 13th century decided to take the vowels from Adonai and Elohim and insert the E and the A and the O into the Tetragrammaton, making it Yehovah. And the Catholic Church took on the name Jehovah and put it in their Catholic Douay version. But then later, when they found out that Watchtower, beginning in the 50s, had decided to make their own translation, it shouldn't have been called the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures. It should have been rightly called the Watchtower Organization's translation of the Holy Scriptures, because that's exactly what it was. But the Catholic Church had then decided that we shouldn't use Jehovah because it's not God's name. We know it's not God's name. And they wrote a letter to Watchtower headquarters telling them where the name had come from, why they had decided to use it, and why they had decided to discontinue using it. It's not God's name, because they knew everything was Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah with the Watchtower. And Watchtower, this is how crazy and arrogant Watchtower is. They actually published the letter that they wrote back to the Catholic Church. I don't even know if they said thank you for your, caring. They actually had the letter published in an article in their Watchtower, which was a study article, the February 1st, 1980 Watchtower. I believe the name of the article was God's Name in Later Times or God's Name in Latter Times. You can look that up on jwfacts.com. February 1st, 1980, the article, The Divine Name in Latter Times. And there they discuss the whole thing about the Catholic Church, the letter they got, and the letter they wrote back. So here they are in print in a study article acknowledging that Jehovah is not God's name and that they know Jehovah is not God's name. But yet what do they push? These guys are off the hook crazy. I'm sorry for interrupting, Kurt. Okay.
That was really, really good. Yeah, it was really good. Any transliteration of the YHWH is a guess. At best, it's a guess. Was somebody else going to speak up? I heard somebody.
No, Kurt. Kurt, this is Stephan. I feel like you were saying. I feel like you were talking about the priest who dated the creation of man at about 4,000 from the 0 year. And then when you add the 2,000 to where we are now, which is how we get the man being on the earth 6,000 years. This is what I thought you were saying. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to, I felt like that's what you were saying. I don't think you were talking about the divine name. I thought you were talking about the priest. Because that's how we get this year. It's so amazing.
Now, Anne-Marie was talking about another priest, and she did a wonderful job describing the origin of the name Jehovah. But yeah, like you were saying, Stephan, this priest I'm talking about, I think I'm right that he was a Catholic priest, set the creation date of Adam at 4004, and most of Christianity, you know what I mean? I can't think of his name. Most of Christianity.
No, I know exactly who you're talking
about. Agrees with his date of 4004. So, and you compare that to the Watchtower at 4026, and they arrive at 1975. If you go add 6,000 years, and so the point I was making, I think we all agree, it turned out to be, I guess, a scam, you can call it, because it just didn't work out. So that was the end of the 6,000 years. If it was the end of 6,000 years, then here we are. So what are you going to say?
Right.
Here we are.
Right.
So
and that's so important. What you just said. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You still there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I would say
you're still speaking.
Okay, I lost you there for a minute. I didn't know if you were still. Yeah.
No, I'm listening. I'm listening to you, sir.
Yeah, I'm just going to make one more thing. Comments that you all talk about scams that you all know about. Now, I don't know Russell's mind, and it's been discussed on Six Screens, I'm sure quite a few times. I've heard it more than once, is the miracle week. And also Russell was somewhat of a, it's been brought out, I think, on Six Screens as a speculator with I think he was part of a gold mine or something, which I'm not judging him as being, I don't know if Christ himself would do that or not, but at any rate, the miracle week turned out really bad for Russell, quite embarrassing, and you could, I guess, classify it as a scam. At least that's the way it turned out. Anyway, I've talked enough. I'm going to turn it back over to Anne-Marie. Thank you, Anne-Marie, and for listening to me and Stephen. And also, I don't want to, cause any problems, but I want to apologize to Nadine, if Nadine is listening, and apologize to Tom of New Hampshire. So anyway, enough of me. I'm going to go back to mute and listen to you guys. And thanks, Anne-Marie and Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Could I ask? Thank you, Stephen. One moment, Kurt, do you mind sharing the name of the Catholic priest referring? I realize I got the wrong one that you were referring to. Did you happen to know his name?
About the time I get off the phone, I'll probably think of it, but I cannot. You could look it up and get a lot more information than I could give you. But I'm pretty sure that the guy that set the date of 4004 BC, I'm pretty sure he was a Catholic priest that done this biblical chronology. And yeah,
I have it right here.
And but I
have it right here.
Okay,
it's Bishop James Usher, who was an Irish Anglican prelate and an archbishop. And like you said, he is the one who calculated the creation of man to October the 23rd, 4004 BC. And of course, we know that is complete hogwash, because we've got bones that date to something like 70,000 BC. So there's no way that the earth could have only been created 6,000 years ago. But yes, that's Bishop James Usher.
Okay,
yes, thank you so much.
So, Stephen, you're saying that. Thank you. So, Stephen, you're saying that Archbishop James Usher is the one that came up with the date October 23rd, 4004 BC as the beginning of the creation of man?
That is correct. And that's the same date that Watchtower uses, whether they use 4004 or 4020, whatever it was that Kurt just said. But the point that I'm making is, this is where this concept that man has only been on the earth 6,000 years comes from. It comes from this guy right here. And this is another person, just like Charles Stas Russell, that made statements that the whole world, ran with, that turned out to be infamously wrong. Like I said, I watch MSN read it at lunch almost every day at my job. And it seems like every week, Anne-Marie, they're finding something that they didn't date that's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. Cave paintings, that's thousands and thousands of years old. So this is so that these kinds of things are the reason why I think a lot of people are leaving religion, because you're going to say man's only been around 6,000 years. I got a cave painting that's 40,000 years old. So how can these two things be reconciled? So, but that's who it was. It's Bishop James Usher. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think
I hear you, Stephen. For someone that as a believer in the scriptures, you would have to probably believe in the gap theory. I know you know about the gap theory in Genesis 1:2, where people were on the earth, and some are theistic evolutionists, where they believe that God got life started on the earth, and it went through the not micro, but the macro evolution processes scientists claim. And it took, some people believe that, the gap theory, and then with the creation of Adam, they say that's a special creation that God injected there around 6,000 years ago, give or take. So, yeah. So some people believe in that gap theory, that man actually, it came from evolution. And really, some go out of Africa. Right. And, the phrase out of Africa, scientists have used. So there's all kinds of thinking on this, and I don't know much about it. Obviously, you y'all are listening to me, but some do believe that that man has been here a lot longer.
It's fascinating. And this is not theory. It's one thing to theorize about something, but I mean, when you find the physical evidence, you got a problem, because this isn't theory anymore. These are bones and caves, and and let's not even talk about the dinosaurs and how come there's no mention of dinosaurs in the Bible, and it just goes on and on and on. But my point is going back to what either Anne Marie said. Oh no, you know who said that? That was Mr. Farron. You know how he does his little like a prelude almost before the actual show comes on, but he was talking about why a lot of young people are leaving religion. But the scientific aspect of it that we're talking about right now, this is a large problem. And this is a large reason why a lot are leaving, because they're looking at science, and this is real science. Like I said, this is not anything somebody's making up. These are real bones.
For a Christian,
travel to this country.
For a Christian that believes in young Earth, and the creation of Adam 6,000 years ago, and just closes the door out there, then they've got a lot of problems to deal with. The age of the Earth, for example, just the age of the Earth alone. Right. It appears like it's 4.5 million years old instead of 6,000. You have your people that are like Ken Ham, people like there's others that argue for a young Earth and for the 6,000 year creation date. So yeah, but anyway, I've enjoyed talking to you guys. I'm kind of wore out, so I'm going to go to mute and listen to you guys. And thank you guys. Thank you, Anne Marie, and I'll shut up. Yeah,
I love you, Kurt. All my love from Sweden. I love you, Kurt. I send you all my love from Sweden.
Love you too, Grace. Thank you, Grace. Bye bye. I'm gonna go back to mute, and actually, I'm gonna go back to YouTube. So
coming on
the phone off and go back to YouTube. Okay, thanks, Anne Marie.
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Stephanie, bye, sweetie. Stephanie, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that was it. When I heard him talking, because this has been in my mind, this is kind of funny. This was actually on my mind because of some scientific discoveries that were published just this week about some other things that were found. And I don't know if you saw the news. It's kind of a hot topic in the scientific world of the news, but they were talking about how scientists really believe through mitochondrial evidence and all of this stuff. To be honest with you, Emory is way over my head, but they're able to go back through the genes in human beings, and they realize that it's very feasible that theoretically all people could have come from a single, woman. Would have taken thousands and thousands of years, but it's certainly possible. And that woman would have been somebody in, I believe they said South Africa. So that kind of got back into this whole topic of how old the Earth is and all the rest of that. So when Kurt brought that up, I knew exactly who he was talking about, because that's the person, like I said, that published this man was, created 4,000 years ago, and you have the 2,000 years that we are now. That's how we get 6,000 years old. But that's simply not true. Man is thousands and thousands of years old. And even if you look at the Noahic flood, if you look at go to Egypt and you look at the pyramids and the Sphinx, that was already in existence even before the Noahic flood, if you're looking at it just on the timetable. So this goes back to why a lot of people are living religion, because it just doesn't stand up to any kind of scientific questioning. But no, I don't have anything else to add. Sorry.
Well, Stephen, I really wanted to thank you for bringing up Archbishop James Usher. That's why I told Kurt, I didn't know if we were thinking of the same person he was talking about. And of course, I went off to Ramondus Martini, but it turned out he was talking about Archbishop James Usher. And I want to know, Stephen, that I very much appreciate your taking the time to come on and explain that. I also find it very interesting. I find it very interesting that if I recall correctly, Watchtower dated the creation of Adam in 4006 BCE, and obviously there's 26 years difference from Archbishop James' date. I don't know if he's right, but it's interesting to me that they would alter dates to fit their plan of getting everybody to believe that Watchtower prophecy of 1975, Armageddon coming, fits into their chronology. If we remember correctly, and for those who don't remember or know, the Watchtower stated that according to Scripture, a day to God is 1,000 years long, but that a created day was 7,000 years long. And at the last day of the last 1,000 years of the last day of God's rest day, because the Bible says in the seventh day God rested from his creative works, that Jesus would take over the kingdom, rule for 1,000 years, which would bring it to the end of the seventh day, 7,000 years, and turn everything back over to God. So it makes sense. So Watchtower had to make their Armageddon prophecy fit into the timeline of those 7,000-year weekdays of the creative week. And they made it fit so that 75 seemed like, oh, yeah, that's right. But then we think about, well, wait a minute. They said that, the Watchtower said that Jerusalem had been destroyed by the Babylonians in 607 BCE. And then we find out, just looking at any source of secular history, that it was actually destroyed 20 years later in 587, early 506 BC, 586 BC. That's a difference of 20 years, which makes sense to me because they proclaimed that in 1965, Armageddon was coming, and it was everybody in Watchtower believed it. And then when it didn't come, there were a few, and I think it was based on maybe they knew that the 607 BC proclamation of Jerusalem being destroyed was off by 20 years. So that might be why there was a lot of gossip. Watchtower did not proclaim it, but there was a lot of gossip going around the Watchtower rank and file community that maybe, for sure, instead of 25, it's supposed to come in 45. There was a lot of anxiousness, especially since, we were all in a world war. And of course it didn't come. And then, from 45 to 66, that's only 22 years later that Watchtower made this big proclamation that for sure this time they got the date right. And I'll never forget the brother that announced the 1975 Armageddon prophecy at the District Convention of God's Sons of Liberty in 1966. He holds up this book and he said, and in this new book, I forgot it again, Life Everlasting in Freedom of the Sons of God. Holds it up. And he said, and in this book, in the very first chapter, you will find a full 5-page Bible chronological chart proving that this time we got it right. And I don't know why I remember that so clearly. I think the Lord just let me.
That's so important.
I'm sorry?
That's so important. I said that's so important that you remember that, because that tells you that they know they never got any of these dates right. And now they're spitballing and they're trying to reassure people that they've got it right now. And that's the only takeaway I think that we probably want people to get from these kinds of conversations, is that this organization does not have the truth. They don't have any other knowledge, insight any other group have. They are experimenting and guessing and using other people's calculations just like anybody else. They're no different than anybody else. So why waste your life trying to be a part of this organization? And certainly, why allow yourself to die? Because Watchtower says X, Y, and Z. Well, Watchtower gets everything wrong. They are not inspired of God. They are not the faithful and discreet slave. They are not God's organization. That's the only takeaway we want people to get. No reason for you to die trying to do what this organization does because they said it. They're nobody. Less than nobody.
What's really funny is I was thinking about this 1975, that they got people to sell their real estate and give all the money to the Watchtower. So I'm thinking, why are they? They are really pushing it hard now that this time it's right. Now it is the end. Now it's really the end is coming. So are they trying to make people give their money away again, or what's going on? That's what I'm thinking.
Well, it's that, and then they're also trying to stem the tide of people leaving. So how do you keep people from leaving? You get them so afraid and so paranoid so that they'll stay. And unfortunately, we live in a time where we're going to have these big swings where things are decent and, mild and not a whole lot going on in the world. And then in a blink of an eye, it could be a war. It could be some kind of catastrophe. So every time these natural disasters or political disasters, whatever, happen, then this is an opportunity for Watchtower to use that as a fear mechanism and motivation to keep people in the organization. This is so formulaic that if you want your eyes open, you can see what they're doing. It's so formulaic. Just every opportunity, as soon as something bad happens, do you ever think there'll be a time when there'll be no more, fill in the blank? And then if there's a time when things are mild, then they'll create something. Oh, we're right around the corner, and they'll come up with something to try to generate fear, and they just go back and forth. I mean, it's just so formulaic that you once you wake up, you just see it a mile away.
Exactly. There's a scripture that says something to the effect that if a blind man leads a blind man, both will fall over the cliff. And I read a comment from someone on the internet that said, it's not that the one being that's following the blind man is actually dying, but when he's falling over the cliff, he suddenly realized he really could see. He just never bothered to open his eyes.
Oh, that's even worse.
I mean, doesn't that make you feel of the faithful to me that no matter what's going on, those are just apostate lies.
Yeah.
They don't want to wake up.
It's something that really, really bothers me, Amber. We live in the most advanced time in human history. I mean, that can't be disputed. The science that we've come to understand. I mean, look right now. We're talking about artificial intelligence. I don't even know fully what all that means and what all that entails. But we know about AI. We know that if we get an email, we can't be 100% sure that it's from the person who says that they sent it to us. I don't know if you've ever called a company for some kind of support or maybe want to return something, and you think you're talking to a person, you're not. You're talking to AI. They just have a script, and they ask you specific questions, and if you give them a specific answer, it knows where to route you. I mean, so advanced, you don't even know you're not talking to a person. And yet, you have at your fingertips, you have an interconnected network where you can download and view information on just about any subject that can enter into your mind. And yet, with all of that, when you're dealing with people from high control groups, they will shut their whole mind down. They will ignore all of that. They will just say, no, I am not going to research this. Whatever they tell me is what I'm going to do. And it's heartbreaking. It's just, how many people have died listening to the bad advice from this organization? And they're just so willing to die. It's heartbreaking. It's like you have all this information on one hand, and then you have the disinformation, where people say, like Watchtower. Watchtower knows that what they're teaching is complete and total BS. What do? They attack the people who are pointing out that it's BS. This is the world that we live in now.
Yep.
And it's only going to get worse.
You know,
Well, they're always saying that Armageddon corner. Too. As I always say, it's always around the corner. It never comes. It's just on the corner. And that's the witness to some going and getting education, going to get a good job or whatever, because they're afraid to say yes if they don't in the meetings, if they don't study the Watchtower magazine stuff, that they're going to be destroyed. I mean, the Bible says nothing about that. It doesn't say only Jehovah's Witnesses are going to stop. It doesn't mention Jehovah's Witnesses in the Bible at all.
right. Is this Donald? What's your name, dear?
This is Donald.
I just wanted to be sure. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. It's just that they have to keep control over everything you do. I don't know of any organization that has the control over a person's life like they do. I mean, right down to what kind of car you're supposed to drive. And that you can't have a two-door car, it has to be a four-door car. And what kind of books you can read and can't read, and what kind of clothes you can and can't wear, who you can talk to, you can't talk to, what you're allowed to think and not to think. Everything. I mean, your whole life is just controlled by these evil men at the top of this religion.
Wow. It's really sad. I just want to take a moment to interject based on your comment, which was great, Donald. Thank you for that. Information control is one of the key elements of classic mind control tools that all cults use. It's called the BITE model, and B is for behavior control, I is for information control, the T is for thought control, and the E in the acronym is for emotional control. And I want to encourage any PIMQ or anyone who's listening who's not sure of what we're saying, all you have to do is go on the internet and look up the BITE model of cults, and you will find it. If you can read that, if you will look at it, it's not like you're investigating the Watchtower or dealing with any apostates. Look up the BITE model that all cults use. And if you can read through the description of each of those four main mind control tools that all cults use, behavioral control, information control, thought control, emotional control, if you can read through all of the information on each one of those components and not see how it's exactly described how it is, you definitely have your eyes completely closed shut. But I hope you look at that anyway.
That's why when I studied with him years ago, I didn't go very far with it because that's all the control they had. And of course, this was before the internet, so it wasn't like I had access to boatloads of information, but just the basic control that they have, like telling you to associate with your neighbor because they're not a JW. That rubs me the wrong way because that's not how Jesus works. I mean, that's not Jesus at all. You know, they claim they follow Christ, but no, they do not follow Christ. They are an anti-Christ organization. They are priming those people to follow the Antichrist.
Absolutely. Doesn't 2 Corinthians chapter 11, I believe it is, tell us to look at the ministers of Satan, how they make themselves look so holy and so good? And it says, is it any wonder? Because Satan himself turns himself into an angel of light, and that's in the Watchtower's own Bible.
Oh. I didn't go through and I quote that guy said, "May every angel fell to me." But I've watched them on YouTube, and I hear on YouTube recordings of these meetings, one of the things that they will ask the person does be the subject, well, don't you believe in it? They're throwing the street, something. Mention Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Loyalty to the Watchtower organization is the first and foremost rule. They don't ask you, are you faithful to Jesus? They don't ask you if you believe in Jehovah or the Bible. It's always you believe in the governing body, the faithful slave is being used by God. If you have a doubt, you're an apostate.
Oh yeah. Doubts and stuff, and all these videos that I've watched on YouTube, whether it's the fellowship meetings or just witnesses in general, it's terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't see anything. I heard about this. I didn't see anything on it, but the that it's well known. A case where a woman was brought before the judicial committee. She was ridiculed. I mean, they played her rape during the judicial meeting. The rapist recorded the rape, and then they played it over and over during that meeting.
For 4 to 5 hours in front of her stepfather and her mother, making her listen to it, stopping the recording.
And they kind of hurt her for it.
They made accusations at several points. Sounds like you were enjoying it. Sounds like you were complicit. You know, basically accusing.
If I were there in that meeting, you know what I would do? I would stand up. I would be so angry. I would say, this meeting is over. And I'd tell them right to their faces, you are not to humiliate that woman any further. You enough damage as it is. You guys are cults. You are evil. You are satanic. That's what I tell them.
Oh, no doubt. In fact, that was reported in the Utah newspaper. I think it was the Salt Lake Journal, because when this poor thing grew up, she decided to sue Watchtower, and it made it into the news and in the newspaper. And yet the Watchtower still stands up on their broadcasting system saying, we reject such lies. It's all apostate lies. Why? If anybody is going to defend the children of the organization, if anybody stands up for them, it's Jehovah's organization. You know, Stephen Lett basically said that, and what's really sad is that Stephen Lett knew this was going on because a dear friend of his, who had been his friend way before he ever became a governing body member, he had a 5-year-old daughter, this friend of Stephen Lett. He had a 5-year-old daughter who he had just found out had been being molested by a fellow elder, and he was so heartbroken because he had gone to the elders, begged for help, and basically he was told, keep his mouth shut, or he'd be disfellowshipped for slander and bringing reproach upon Jehovah's organization. And they said there was nothing they could do. There were no 2 witnesses. So in desperation, he wrote a private 5-page letter asking for help and advice from Stephen Lett. And Stephen Lett basically wrote back a short little paragraph saying something to the effect of, I'm so sorry your family is going through all this, but thank Jehovah that you are still faithful to Jehovah and to his organization. And that poor man was so upset. That was a personal friend. The only reason I know this happened is because this poor guy was so upset, he decided to share the whole thing with Tim and Mikey on YouTube. And they told the story, they read his letter, and they were both shaking their heads like, how could Stephen Lett get up on JW Broadcasting or JW.org and talk about how this isn't true, than anything being said about pedophiles and child molesting going on in the Watchtower. It's all apostate, love-driven lies. We reject such lies. I don't think that there's any level of evil that they will not stoop to protect their organization. In fact, one guy got up on broadcasting and said, and I don't know if this is verbatim, but he said, our foremost concern is to protect God's organization. And we got to understand what he's really saying. Our foremost concern is to protect our organization to the expense of all the poor little children who are being victimized and sodomized and horribly treated sexually.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's tough to scam too, because the witnesses are being scammed through that. They're being scammed in the idea that, oh, this is a loving organization. This is God's organization. And it's all scams.
Even worse is that the lies they tell, the false prophecies they proclaim, the twisting of God's own word, changing and rearranging, adding and taking away from and manipulating God's word is all in the name of God. Every evil they do is in the name of God. And it's way beyond the word blasphemy. It is the epitome of utter disregard, disrespect, and not having any thought of who they are using and abusing. Can you imagine, Donald, in your name, horrible lies are being told as if it came from you?
Wow. I mean, that would be yeah.
Yeah,
they claim that you don't really truly love God unless you follow those policies. So, you can just tell them to your effect all you want that, oh, I'm Jesus. And if you just believe the God.
Hey, I'm going to come in here, Anne Marie. Can we get, hey, Donald, this is Rick Farron at the control panel here. Your voice is really not coming through really clear, Donald. Are you close to your phone?
I'm close to it, yes,
Well, again, it's not really as clear as could be. So keep, stay nice and close, speak as nice and clear as you count to five. Count to five for me. Let me hear you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a little shaky.
Yeah, it's it's in and out. I mean, we can hear you, but it's just I just wanted to see if there's some way we could get it better. But we can hear you, but just slow down, and then we'll try to probably hear you a little better. Okay, and stay close to your phone.
Okay.
I thought it was my phone because it's such a piece of garbage. One thing I wanted to add is I noticed that every time I'm listening to a talk, wherever it's coming from, jw.org or broadcasting or whatever, I notice that they always equate Jehovah with the organization. Like, we want to be faithful to Jehovah and to his organization, or we want to always be obedient to Jehovah and to his organization. So they have two things that they're inculcating into the program minds of their followers, is that leaving the organization is leaving Jehovah, serving the organization is serving Jehovah, and basically they're one and the same. So it's not really bringing praise, order, and respect or obedience or loyalty to Jehovah. It's actually by kind of going around the back door, making sure you understand that serving the organization is the primary objective. Loyalty to the organization is the foremost rule, always. You can't even have a question without being looked at as, oh, are you an apostate? Have you been looking at apostate sites? It doesn't matter if maybe your question was actually relevant. Oh, no, you don't question the governing body. And my Jehovah's Witness son, I have one son that joined the Watchtower, and I tried to reason with him just very gently because I don't want to, upset him. But he said to me, he said, Mom, I'd rather stick with Jehovah's organization and find out later that I was wrong than to ever leave Jehovah's organization and find out later that I was right to have been in the organization. And I'm like, well, there's the end of that story. That's the way you think.
It's all about worshiping the governing body.
Exactly. Which they call the faith.
God. That's their God.
It's a mess. It's a mess. Well, thank you, Donald. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that was it.
Well, Donald, I want you to know I really appreciate your comments, and again for the clarification.
Thanks for doing this, by the way, Anne-Marie. I really look forward to talking to you on here and everything. Thanks so much.
Oh, well, thank you. We enjoy hearing from you, Donald, very much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I enjoy this. I really do.
Oh, well, you bring out really good points, and Stefan as well. I always enjoy you guys. Is there anyone that would like to comment, share a thought, an experience relating to our subject? Yes, who's this?
This is Stefan again. I just have a quick thought about what your son just said. I get that when I'm talking to people. And I said, okay, you understand, quote unquote, Jehovah's organization. And I said, but what about the scripture in Revelation where Jehovah says, get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share in her sins. Now, I said, now, if God wanted you to just stay a part of an organization, maybe in the hopes that someday, at some point, they're going to get things right, or they're going to get their teachings right, or they're going to get their sins, whatever they may be, correctly figured out, he wouldn't have told you to get out. I said, but that's not what it says. It does not say stay there until they figure things out or whatever the case. It says get out. And then I take them to the nation of Israel. I said, what happened to the nation of Israel? They were God's quote-unquote people, or we could say in today's language, they were God's organization. Were they not? And of course, they'll say yes. And I said, and did not God destroy that organization because of their sin? So this concept of you just stay with an organization until, I said, this is not scriptural by any means. I said, you have a specific exhortation to get out, and if you don't get out, the second part of that verse says that you will share in her sins. And so that's what I say to people when they talk to me about staying in God's organization. I read them that verse, and most of the time, there's really nothing that they can say. And hopefully, that gets the wheels turning and makes them think a little bit.
Right.
Yep.
And what about in their own Bible at Psalms 146, verse 3, do not put your trust in princes, nor in a son who cannot bring salvation. It's just ridiculous. And later it says
right there.
Jehovah is releasing the prisoners. Aren't all Jehovah's Witnesses prisoners? In verse 8 of Psalm 45, it says, Jehovah is opening the eyes of the blind. Jehovah is raising up those bowed down. So I'm like, whoa, I can't help but picture the witnesses.
Yeah. It's like you said, Emery, it's right there. It's right there in black and white. They read these same verses weekly, monthly, yearly. I don't know how often they do the Bible reading. Or even when Jesus called the scribes, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, false teachers, that was the one group of people that Jesus was constantly saying negative things about. Never say anything about just the average person or the average quote-unquote sinner. But he always let those scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees have it at any given opportunity. And when you look at the way Watchtower is, they're nothing but a modern-day scribe and Pharisee. And why people can read those verses and never make the connection back to their organization, I don't know. It's like you're sitting there thinking to yourself, you're a part of a modern-day Pharisaical organization, because that's what Watchtower is. They're a modern-day Pharisaical organization. Why people can't see it, I don't know.
Yeah. And in line
Anne Marie?
Yes, who's this?
This is Susan. Hi, honey.
Oh, hi, Susan.
Well, thank you. Stephen brought something to my mind. This topic that you've been talking about. They haven't mentioned this scripture in a while, but Malachi 3:10. They said in 1919 Jesus came and inspected all the religions on the earth. And whom did he choose? Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, guess what? They've changed a lot of things since 1919, even recently. The beard thing, women can wear pants to the Kingdom Hall, and also we've had all these elders, brothers, circuit overseers that have been caught in child molestation. So if they were so perfect and Jesus chose this organization as the perfect one, how can it be perfect when it's not?
Easy, just lie.
Well, that's how they quote Malachi 3:10. Jesus came and inspected all the religions, and Jehovah's Witnesses were chosen. And to me, that's a joke.
Beyond a joke, and I can't believe I believe that. And along the lines with not putting your trust in nobles nor in princes or the son of earthling man, Jeremiah says in chapter 17, verse 5, this is what Jehovah says, cursed is the man who puts his trust in mere humans, who relies on human power. And don't the rank and file in general just put all their trust in the power of these earthling men who actually admit they don't have Holy Spirit, they're not inspired, and they're not infallible. But you got to follow us or God will destroy you at Armageddon. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense at all.
And what about that 1 Thessalonians 5:21? Make sure of all things, which to me reminds me of the Bereans, who even though they accepted what Paul was teaching them about the good news about the Christ, salvation through Christ, they still were examining the scriptures daily as to whether these things were so. Can you imagine any Watchtower actually checking out Watchtower teachings according to God's word, even in their own Bible? It will not be supported. No wonder the Watchtower wants them to all use their cell phones and their tablets.
You know, one of the teachings I find very really bizarre, and it really doesn't make sense. They claim that God chooses not to know certain things. Now, think about that for a minute. How can you choose not to know something? He would have to know it to choose it, to make the choice to not know. I mean, it makes sense, you know. I mean, God knows everything, but yet they say He doesn't know everything.
There you go. Susan, I just want to ask you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Susan, is there anything you would like to add to your comment, dear?
No, I think that everyone's making good points. Is that really, how can the Watchtower be what they say they are? They're not. They're just a money-making organization. The assemblies are just money-making events for the Watchtower organization. So if people want to attach their wagon to the Watchtower, they're free to do so.
Wow. You brought out the money-making organization, and what I wanted, one of the things I wanted to bring up is that how all of the district conventions are huge moneymakers, or at least they were. We never realized that when the Watchtower would go to rent a stadium or a large venue for a district convention, they would negotiate with the owners to subtract all the money this was all part of a standard rental. The janitorial charge, the cleanup committee, the security, the parking lot attendants. The Watchtower would say, oh, well, can you deduct the money for all that because our people will do it? And I'll never forget how many hours each of us would slave cleaning up an entire stadium. It took hours. The latrine duty, I mean, it was so awful. You know, being in charge of the bathrooms was disgusting. And we had to clean it and take care of it and, you know, deal with that. And also the parking lot attendants, they would do that when it was included in the initial rent. And also security. The brothers all had to do security. It was all done for free. So while Watchtower is saving money on renting out the venue for a district convention, the brothers and sisters are doing all of the work that was already included. We're all doing it free. And of course, we didn't even know that. And then we hear about the money. Remember, I don't know about you guys, but I remember in the 60s and 70s and 80s, all along the main walkways, every so many feet, would be these huge brown paper wrapped barrels that said contributions. And this one lady came on the 6 screens. I think she came on twice. I'm sure you might remember, Susan. She came on the 6 screen. She was the wife, or had been the wife, of a district overseer or circuit overseer. And she worked for a few years in what she called the counting rooms that were below the venue, and they would count the money, the cash money, stuffed into these huge barrels. They were large barrels, and there would be security watching every single, it was mostly women, counting the money. And, you know, the money that they raked in was insane. And then near the end of the convention, her brother would come in and say, okay, what's the total? And she'd tell him the total. And she'd say, but there'd be like 5-10 barrels of full of cash that hadn't been counted yet. And she'd say, well, those barrels over there haven't been counted. Oh, never mind. Don't worry about that. Just tell me what you have right now. And the brother would be told, and sure enough, and I'm sure if all you guys are old enough, you will remember that at the end of every convention, we would hear from the podium, oh, aren't we blessed? Didn't we just have a feast of spiritual food? And don't we feel so thankful to Jehovah? And clap, 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 you know, building us up for the nice little manipulation to come. Unfortunately, we still live in Satan's world and things cost money, and we do have a deficit. So just if you happen to have, you know, a little extra, a little $5 or $10 or $20 bill would really help for us to be able to cover this deficit. When they didn't have a deficit, they were flowing with money. And the sister that had come on the 6 screens who used to work in those counting rooms said that last announcement was always good for a few thousand more, sometimes like $20,000 more. Money making convention, that's all it was. That is so sad. That classifies as a scam and a ripoff, but they never tell you the full truth. Anybody want to comment?
I'd like to share something with y'all here.
Is this Kurt again?
No, it's not. Y'all, it's not. It's. I'm on here now about those conventions. They've been. You're right. It's that work it. We all know how. Y'all know how cheap they were with those kind of events.
Mm-hmm.
And they would be so thankful for what I like to call a banquet of poison wine and petroleum oil dishes. We all know that. And also as expensive as hell to go those too.
Yeah. And how about when you're getting ready to, you know, prepare to go to a district convention? Of course, now they call it regional convention because there were so few attending the district conventions. They had to expand the area, and they got rid of the word district and made a wider area, calling it a region. So now it's a regional convention. But anyway, the Watchtower would make plans and deals with different hotels and motels and then tell the rank and file to go through them. And a lot of people found out that if they made their own arrangements with different hotels or motels, that they could save a lot of money, but you have to show loyalty to the organization and do what they instruct you to do. So the Watchtower was getting kickbacks, sometimes free rooms for different people, you know, in the mucky muck. But also, they would ask you to donate any kind of kickback you got from a credit card, like, oh, earn points, earn this, and your miles, you know, for free airplane rides. They want you to donate that too to the Watchtower. That's another scam. It's another ripoff. Anybody have any ideas?
And nothing but a giant fraud right there.
I heard about the miles. I'm sorry, was that big?
Yes, I heard about the miles and also the hotel rates and such.
Yeah,
so that's true. And see, the one thing that I think we can all benefit from, you were talking in the scripture about how, you know, we're not supposed to bend. I think all of us, even if we're 70 years old now, look at some of these exercises for seniors, where you have your arms over your head and do a little boxing, arms to the side, a little boxing, stamp your feet. I would think that most of us have a whole lot of tension in our backs and arms for all the book bags we carried, all the hard seats we sat in, all the times we bowed our head. More, I'm saying to be reverent to God, but I mean the Methodists and Baptists don't bow like we did.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
So most of us have a lot of tension in that upper back and arms, and a lot of that stayed with me for a lifetime, and I'm feeling great.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Is there anything you'd like to add, Dixie?
Just that for many of our callers, they probably think, oh, I'm just old and tired. If they do a little of this very mild exercise for the joints, they're going to feel better, because Jesus said the yoke is light. We all carried a very heavy load.
Yep.
Literally.
Yes. Yes, we did. Even sisters carried heavy book bags. I remember when I would look for a purse, I was always thinking of, Watchtowers fitting in and the books fitting in. Sometimes I even carried the Aid to Bible Understanding with me. That was a very heavy book. I carried the large, heavy volume of the 1984 reference Bible that Watchtower released, which, by the way, I love that Bible. It has so many great footnotes. I learned more from that Bible. But yeah, you're right. I never thought of it. The physical toll it took on our bodies.
So if you work for a few weeks on that just real lightly, you're going to feel better.
Well,
because all this trauma is in the body too.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. It's true. Is there anyone that would like to speak up? *6. We're starting to run a little short on time. I might have to continue the show next 2 weeks. Does anybody have a thought to share, an experience, a comment? This is your show. I'm listening.
Yes.
Who's this? What's your name, dear?
Yeah, this is Thomas Foster from Lawrence, Kansas. How are you?
Hey, Thomas. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Not too bad. Just enjoying relaxation here.
Well, good.
I was just thinking about this tremendous amount of money these idiots raked in on the parking lots. They had all these charges to have a parking space, and really they rented that facility, but this is just another little way that they could scam us out of our money. This went on for many years, and it really upset the apple cart when it was found out in Tacoma, Washington, how much money they were taking in. They weren't even supposed to be charging. And I guess that guy, he had a crisis of conscience. They ended up his fellowship, and that poor man, and as you know, the family and everybody just shunned him like a dead person. Really horrible how they treat people. But this just happens over and over and over again. These people, I really hope, Anna Marie, that we'll be able to see some real action taken against the Watchtower Society for scamming people out of all this money. Now, we're seeing this take place right now in the government. We see Elon Musk, he's uncovered billions and billions of dollars from people stealing from the people. And I hope this happens with the Watchtower, because it's a big, massive money laundering business run by a criminal organization. These people are nothing but con men. I hope the boomerang will come back on them before too much longer.
Oh, you and me both, Thomas. That is such a great comment. Thank you for that. Yeah, don't we be exposed? But they're being exposed. That's what Rick does every week, just according to Ephesians 5:10-14. Go ahead, dear.
You guys got me thinking about this convention. The thing that really shocked me is, we tell people that Watchtower is nothing more than a money-making organization. And of course, they can't fathom that. It's a religion to them, and the only true one at that. But when I got to be a teenager, I started going to a thing called the Taste of Chicago here in Chicago. And it's just where restaurants, a lot of restaurants that participate, they would come and go. But the thing that was important to get to this conversation is you don't pay for your food with money. You go to a concession stand and you convert your money into tickets, and then you pay for everything using these tickets. And that makes perfect sense, because that way you can kind of, control where the cash is, because you're going to have people that are trying to rob you and all the rest of that. And then all of a sudden, Watchtower started doing the same thing. When you go to your circuit district assemblies, they will want you to buy their food. This is, just going back some years. and you would convert your cash into tickets, and you buy the food with the ticket. And the thing that I realized later, and I learned this in college, is customers do that for two reasons. One is for security, but the biggest reason is because when I buy something with a ticket, I have lost in translation the real value of what the item is I'm purchasing. In other words, I might be paying twice for an item with tickets than I would be with cash, because it's just really hard to translate how much something is with a ticket versus how much something is with a cash. And once I woke up from this organization, I remembered those days, and it instantly came to my mind that that is the reason why Watchtower switched from taking cash to using these tickets, because they were actually making a lot more money by having people buy the tickets. And instead of paying, $1 for a soda, you're actually paying $1.50 because you're paying with tickets. You don't really, it just doesn't register to me. And so they have been just inventing ways to make money off of us for as long as they can. Like the gentleman you just mentioned, the parking. They were making money off of that. We've been told that when they would rent these arenas, the parking is included. It's a part of the contract. So why would we, as a rank and file, when we go to those conventions, why are we paying, in effect, for free parking? We were told that the cleaning of those facilities was included in the contract. But as you all know, every time the meeting was over, everybody had some cleaning assignment. So you got to go race to your assignment, take out the trash, to clean the toilets, to sweep and mop, whatever it was. Well, all that was included. The cleaning staff was on site, probably in a room somewhere, laughing at us like we're the biggest idiots ever, and basically getting a vacation because they were getting paid. They didn't have to do anything because these idiot witnesses were doing it. They have been taking advantage of us and milking us and doing things to us without our knowledge for as long as we can, just inventing ways to get money out of us. And you just made me think of that when you brought up the tickets, or whoever it was when they brought up the tickets. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Stephen. The food tickets was one thing that I did want to bring up, and I appreciate your bringing it up yourself. I do remember in the 80s when they implemented the new whatever of food tickets, and they presented it, of course, as a convenience. And they said instead of standing in long lines, digging through your pockets for change, your dollar bills, or worrying about bringing money and you could get lost, you don't want to take a chance on losing your money. And it was like this big new thing, and they were white tickets. I think they might have been different colors for different years, but they would always, about a month or 6 weeks before the convention that you would use your tickets for, they would, on the service meeting, say, now we need you to think carefully and don't scrimp. Think realistically how much you're going to need to cover your family, maybe your Bible study who might come along, any friends, maybe your older parents. They wanted you to buy as many tickets ahead of time because you don't want to be in the middle of the convention shortchanged, hungry. You don't want to hear your children crying that they're hungry and you didn't buy enough tickets. So they really pushed everybody to buy all the tickets they could. And pretty much everyone left the convention with spare tickets that, by the way, you could not use at the next convention. So I want to thank you, Stephen, for bringing it up. It is so true. It was just one more scam, one more ripoff. As you said, they will always find ways to get money out of the rank and file. It's just like we did with their literature. We would get our literature in the old days before they said we could get it for free. But we had to pay for every pamphlet, every brochure, every Watchtower, and every Awake. And in those days, Watchtower was published twice a month, and so was Awake. So every week was either a new Awake or a new Watchtower. And we had to pay for all that. We had to buy our songbooks, buy all of our paraphernalia, like the Aid to Bible Understanding book, the Reasoning book, our Bibles. And of course, you're expected to buy one of everything for each of your children. And for each item of literature that we bought, we weren't just paying for the cost of printing, is what they told us. They were making money off of everything we bought.
You know what though, and you can go to your church have hymnals in the church. You don't have to buy them. They're just there. You can sing the songs right out of hymnals. You don't have to go buy one.
Yep, I'm hearing that one. I'm going to ask our
Make all the churches false.
I'm going to ask our dear brother Rick how we're doing on time as we are going into JW World News. One moment. Rick, my brother, are you there?
Yes, Anne-Marie, I'm here. But listen, take another. Got a lot of people coming in here tonight. Noticing the computer screen here with lots of people calling in from pretty much all over the world. I'd love to have them all speak up and talk to you. So why don't you take another 10 minutes or so, Anne-Marie? Go ahead, keep the program going.
Well, thank you for that wiggle room, my brother. You're always so generous. Thank you, Rick. Okay, everyone, we have about another 10 minutes. Is there anything that regarding the subject, how Watchtower scams and rips off the people of their organization? Hit star 6, share a thought. How about quick mode? Go ahead.
You were talking a lot about them tickets.
Oh, yeah.
And how, and yeah, it's an expensive lifestyle. You know what it is? It's not even a real Bible study. It's a craft, is what it is. Like like Freemasonry. That's exactly it. The craft is what I like to call it. And there's all that literature. It's all craft manuals, and those food tickets. Some of them brought their own. Some went somewhere else. I read in comments. And sometimes I think that some of them might have resorted to get those food tickets to counterfeiting money.
Well, I wouldn't know about that. That generally the rank and file were very loyal, and they loyally purchased all those food tickets. And what I think Stephen brought it out, and I realized the same thing later, that Watchtower was getting guaranteed money instead of paying certain brothers to make deals with different manufacturers to get sodas and danishes and hamburgers and so on for the conventioners, and then hoping they would make their money back. They came up with the idea of ticket pay, have everybody basically pay all their money up front and get them to overspend. They have their money, whether the brothers used those tickets or not. The money was in the pockets of the Watchtower.
Let's hope that in the contribution box in the Watchtower that they got some counterfeit currency, all of it.
Or maybe people just put in their unused tickets as a donation box. What do you think of that, Dallas?
Yes, or counterfeit. Let's make some false currency and put it in every contribution box.
Oh, that's kind of mean. I mean, I don't agree with you on that. But
I don't think I'd really do that.
It's a fun thought. Well, we don't want to stoop to what Watchtower does. You know, we're good people, and we're just basically exposing, what they do for the sake of those who don't know. There's so many faithful witnesses that are really, really trying to serve God in the way that they think is right, and they really don't have the facts. And that's basically what we're trying to do.
We're sad for them. We do what we do because we love them.
I know. You're right, Dallas. You're so right. We do love them. We come from a place of love, and we pray that they will want to wake up. But everybody has their own time, and we never know what little thing that they hear or see or experience is going to kind of flip the switch, like, hey, wait a minute, something is not right. I smell something wicked in Denmark. Yep. Any further thoughts?
Anne-Marie?
My sister.
Yes, I'm changing it a little bit. I'm looking at the big scam with the Kingdom Halls. But the Watchtower did is they said, we're going to assume everyone's mortgage. and all the kingdom halls were just jumping with glee because every month they didn't have to pay their mortgage, no matter how large or small the mortgage was. Okay, well, the Watchtower pays off their mortgage, but now they own the kingdom hall. So when it gets sold, guess who gets the money? It has nothing to do with the brothers or how much they paid out of the mortgage or how much they donated to build this hall. They gave up. Once they gave up the mortgage, they gave up owning the kingdom hall. And that's how the Watchtower slowly usurped all that money, all that property from the local brothers and took it for themselves. And now they're left with nothing.
At least in the world, if you want to take a loan against the equity in your home, you go to a bank and the bank gives you a payment plan. And only if you cannot keep up those payments of that loan, then you not just automatically lose your house, you're in risk of losing your house. The bank will work with you, but it could end up in foreclosure. But Watchtower just manipulated and scammed all of these kingdom halls to turn over and give up their mortgage like, oh, we're being forgiven what we owe. But, you know, people need to see the big picture. They had to take out a loan from Watchtower to buy the property, to build it themselves, almost all through slave labor, all brothers who are carpenters, builders, foundation makers, electricians, plumbers, designers, roofers, whatever, working for free, often donating their own supplies to build the Kingdom Hall, sisters bringing the food. It all got built, and Watchtower really didn't have to pay anything for the building of this beautiful Kingdom Hall. The rank and file had to do it all themselves, but they're stuck with paying back the loan to Watchtower for 3 to 6% interest. And then they take the mortgage, and when they're not bringing in enough money, go somewhere else with selling the property. And they've been doing it a lot in very affluent areas, at least in my area, very affluent Kingdom Halls, that they're selling over $1 million that the Watchtower rank and file built with their own hands. Is that not a scam and a ripoff?
It absolutely is, Anne-Marie, and they did it without the brothers even seeing it.
Exactly. And it was that's a scam.
And well, they looked at it as Watchtower being kind and taking a load off of them. No mortgage every month, and no payment to the society every month.
Like they're doing Watchtower rank and file a favor.
Yeah. So this
Yeah,
is very
it's a snare and a racket.
Yeah. They're in a racket. There's like one, I don't know if you guys watch Kim and Mike on YouTube, but they get a lot of information from PMO elders, physically in, mentally out elders, who, bless their heart, are giving information to Mike and Kim, and I know they've shared information with Rick as well. But one thing that really stuck in my head when they were talking about how Watchtower scams their members, they said many years ago when they were still in the Watchtower, there was a call out from the Watchtower organization for donations from the rank and file to help Watchtower build what they called a learning center in Pennsylvania. They were telling the rank and file, we plan to build a huge learning center for those who will be coming back in the resurrection. And everybody was real excited about it. Everybody was giving money. And Kimmy was saying, you know, we really didn't have very much money, but we were very excited about the idea. And if I remember correctly, Kim and Mike sent in about $400. And then years down the road, there was not another thing said about it. And then years down the road, Kim and Mike found out that this quote-unquote learning center was actually law offices specifically for the Watchtower. That's what the rank and file's donations had built. Scam and a ripoff. Anybody have any last thoughts? Did I lose my connection?
You still on, Anne?
No, we can hear you just fine.
Okay.
We can hear you just fine. You know, I was just thinking about what Miss Susan just said. I was there. I was still a witness when they made that announcement about foregoing the mortgages. And I was in real estate. I don't do real estate. I'm an IT guy for 18 years. So I kind of piqued my interest when I heard that. And I was sitting there like anybody else listening to the announcement. So right after they got done talking about how they forgave the loans, then it went on to say in that same letter how the congregation would continue to be expected to donate or contribute the same amount that they would give for the loan. And as soon as I heard that, I said to myself, wait a minute. So you're, on one hand, you're saying you forgive the loan, but then you're telling me to contribute the exact same amount that I was giving, which means I may not be paying the loan anymore on paper, but behind the scenes, I'm still paying the loan. And then on top of it, if you're not intelligent, you don't understand that when you have a loan, you have terms, maybe it's 15-year loan, 10-year loan, 30-year. Well, at the end of that term, then that loan is over with, and you now own that property. But if I'm just contributing the same amount, I could be theoretically contributing that same amount way past the terms of any loan, and the witnesses won't even understand that they're just being completely and entirely taken. What are you spending all this money for? This house was already paid for. And then later on, there was another announcement, and all the bobbleheads just sit there shaking their head and basically giving up the ownership or control of the physical building and whatever money you might have in your bank accounts over to Watchtower. And they used the elders to do that. And I'm sure they went and got the elder that everybody likes, the funny one, the friendly one, whatever he says everybody kind of goes with. And they got up there and they did that motion. And I was looking around and I was saying to myself, I don't think that these people understand what they just, I know they don't understand what they just agreed to. And that was giving up control of this congregation. So on one hand, you're no longer paying a loan, but you're fully expected to pay the same amount for forever. And then if the Kingdom Hall gets sold, you don't own it, so you don't get a dime out of the effort that you put in, as you mentioned, building the thing in the first place, maintaining it, continuing to send in whatever you're sending in every single month. And then they sell it, and you don't get a dime of it. And you just can't understand how people don't see this, and why people are not screaming bloody murder and walking away from this. It's like these guys are the biggest. So if that's right, if I understand you right, they don't have the loan, but paying the same amount for the loan. But they keep paying that amount forever, basically. Yes, they don't. That was all end day given. Yeah. Uh-huh. And you can go look. There's a JT forever. Forever. There was a JT and Legacy video. This is one of the first videos I watched when I woke up from this organization. The JT was talking about how he was in the room at a district convention with some rep from Watchtower. And he was saying that when the money gets brought in, the sisters sit there with the brown cardboard boxes and they collect money. That money all goes into this room, and there's a little small group of people, and they count the money. And then there's a specific number that they call back at Bethel. And Bethel will then look up that circuit or the district, and they'll say, okay, this is district, blah, 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 and this is your convention. And you got how much? Oh, we got 24,000. Yeah, no, that's not enough. Okay. And then they go out there and they read the announcement. Oh, friends, we have a deficit. And then the witnesses give, even more money. But the point he asked during that, because he was trying to understand, how is it that you have a deficit? How do you owe? How do you just walk in the building of a district assembly that you own, or that's Joe Lynch's owner, or that's paying for it, and you owe? And the brother, he was saying, this is the district overseer, circuit overseer. Well, we built this, and so there's a mortgage on it, and this and that, and so, we have to pay. So the congregations are expected to pay so much per, month or whatever until it's paid off. So then JT asked the district overseer, or the Bethel rep, whatever he was, he said, well, what happens when this thing is paid off? And he said, when he said it, it was like you could hear a pin drop, and the brother looked at him like, I know you didn't just ask me that question. Because the concept is, we don't tell them that it's paid off, so that they continue to pay whatever it is that we pay in the belief that they're paying on a mortgage. This mortgage might have been paid off about 10 years ago, but they don't know it. This is how they take advantage of these poor witnesses. And this lets you know that, again, this is not a religion, this is a business, and that these people who run this organization, they're not Christians, and they're certainly not believers in God. Because if you were, you just wouldn't do people like that. That's the whole concept of being a Christian.
That's totally evil.
These people are not believers of the Bible or God.
To take the kingdom hall out from underneath them, and then expect them to continue paying the mortgage forever, even though they no longer call it a mortgage, but it's still the same amount.
Right. That's right.
It's a huge scam. It's a gigantic bogus
That's a huge scam. And I'll tell you, that night, I went to an elder that night after that meeting where they read that announcement. Now, he was a newly minted elder. And I thought maybe I could actually get an honest answer out of him, since he wasn't one of these old, grizzled, been an elder for 30 years type, brand new, newly minted elder. And I said, can I ask you a question? And he said, yeah. I said, I want to make sure I understand what I just heard. I said, the mortgage for the Kingdom Hall was forgiven. He goes, yes, isn't that wonderful, Jehovah, and beautiful, blessed, and all this garbage? I said, okay. I said, but then you're fully expected to contribute the same amount. He goes, well, yeah, but see, it's just a donation. I said, yeah, but how long would you donate that? We'll see the society, and then they'll tell us when, and then I said, so you're saying they're going to come back with another announcement 5 years from now, whatever it is, and say, you no longer need to pay. Yeah, so, Jehovah's going to take care of it, blah, 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 and this and that. Just a non-answer. Now, whether he was lying to me, whether he just didn't even understand what I was asking, whether he was just, I don't know. But this was the answer, that I was given. And I just looked at him, and I could tell within myself that I no longer believe in this organization. And that was just that from the financial aspect, not even about the
And
these people have been ripping up.
Yeah, well, they're paying that fake. Now it's a fake mortgage. When they're paying that, if Watchtower turns around and says, well, we're going to go and sell the Kingdom Hall while you're paying that fake mortgage, they're going to make more money, Watchtower is, off of that Kingdom Hall, because they're worth it, what, a couple million every year?
Yeah. And then when they sell the Kingdom Hall, they'll take the people that used to go to those various congregations and they'll split them up and they'll send them all over the place. And then you have witnesses. This was happening to us. This was right when I was just about to leave. We had a big merge. Why these congregations were merged, I don't know if it was an attendance issue or did they sell their building. I don't know. But the thing about it is these people were literally crying because they weren't going to be going to the same hall as this one. The grandmothers now got to go to some hall way across town. The kids got to go to a different hall. The mom and dad have to go. And I remember saying to an elder who was very worried about his daughter now having to go to a Kingdom Hall way away by herself. And I let him talk. And I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, irrespective of what Watchtower says, I said, it's your decision as to whether you do it. Just tell your daughter, listen, I'm not comfortable with you going by yourself way across town where you're going to be 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night coming out in the inner city of Chicago. I'm not comfortable with it. So, you're going to just say, well, I said, brother, if something happens to your little daughter who's not even 100 pounds soaking wet, I said, are you going to be able to live with yourself? Because Jehovah and Oregon, I said, are you going to be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, this might not have ever happened, and I just kept my daughter right with me. I said, this is how you need to approach the situation. Go look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, if something happens to my daughter, if she's killed out here, if she's beaten, if she's robbed, if she's raped, same things you hear about every day on TV. If this happens to your daughter, can you live with yourself? And if the answer is no, then you tell your daughter, you just stay right here. And if there's any flack, you tell them to come see me. I said, your job is to protect your family. I said, if these other fools want to go across town and deal with whatever, that's on them. But that's your daughter. That's your responsibility to provide and take care of her. You know damn well it's not a good idea for you to be shipping your daughter out there because they said that. I said, you keep your daughter right with you. And if not, then you'd be able to deal with the consequences. So that's how we deal with that. But these people are crying because they were getting moved to different congregations. They had no regard, is the point that I'm making, for what they were doing to these witnesses. Instead of you going to the hall, like I knew a brother, our hall 15 minutes away. They shipped him. He has to now go across the border to another state, and that's where he goes every day. And he was moaning and complaining about it the whole time. But this is what they did. They don't care. Everybody is just a dollar sign.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for calling in. It was a great show. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Grace. I want to thank Donald and Kurt and Stephen and Susan. I want to thank Dallas and Pixie and Thomas. All of your comments are so great. They make the show. You callers make the show. I'm sorry we need to end the show. We have gone about 6-7 minutes over the time that Rick gave us extra. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. But we need to go to Rick and JW World News. Rick?
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much. A lot of participation tonight. Lots of people calling in. And it's really amazing to see this because as the weather's getting better, you would think people would be out. Spring is springing all over the country now. And I'm thinking people would be out wanting to do things, but they are listening in to the 6 screens. So, wow, that's a great thing. We want to thank everyone that came in tonight. And we want to thank especially those that were calling in. Now, if you can do that, that would be good. We have 2 more programs coming up tonight. So why don't you make a real effort to try to muster up the courage and call into the program because you are the ones that make the program when you speak up. So why don't you try that on JW World News coming up and on the Dick and Constance Borgie Exposing the Watchtower program coming up later on around 10 o'clock. So anyways, I want you all to keep standing tall, and we'll be hearing from Anne-Marie tomorrow. She has another program tomorrow, different title on 6 Screen Sunday. It's ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their story of being in the Watchtower. So that starts at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Same YouTube and Facebook channel and telephone number. So if you can come in tomorrow at 2, Anne-Marie would love to have you. And if there's anybody out there that would like to share their story of being in the Watchtower, well, by all means, write to me at jwworldnews@gmail.com, jwworldnews@gmail.com, and we'll give you a spot tomorrow. Come on in. You can speak for 10 minutes, a half hour. Anne-Marie would love to have you come in tomorrow. So if you've got a story to tell, come on tomorrow on that program that Anne-Marie has at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Well, once again, thank you. And stay tuned. More programming coming up tonight on the 6 screens. Don't go anywhere. Bye now. So we're going